the easier you make it for people to work, the happier they are. Technology is a core piece of it, but that's not the goal. The goal isn't the technology. The goal is the people.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast.
Extended interview.
Hey, I'm Heather Harlos from JumpCloud. I am the head of channel and MSP marketing. I've been in the channel and technology for longer than I'd like to admit, over 15 years now. And in my free time, I think I've already said this on here, but love to ride horses, but I don't think I told people I like to cosplay. So another fun fact.
Cosplay. Now that's something we're going to have to explore in the extended interviews. My 11-year-old child is really into cosplay, and I keep getting dragged to Comic Cons here in the UK for this kind of thing. So we'll talk about that later on in the interview. Heather, thank you so much for coming back on. You're obviously at a new business now, different to the one that you were working at when you were with us last time. But it is wonderful to have you back on the podcast, and thank you so much for joining us. So we're going to talk today about people, and one of my recurring marketing themes is that, marketing is about reaching people, and it's people buy from people. But it's so easy for us to forget that because we're in a very digital world, and it seems to be all about technology and digital marketing methods, doesn't it?
It does completely. And I really think people buy experiences. So what's the experience you're setting for your customers every time they interact with you? Which comes down to them talking to your employees, the technology you're providing them on the back end, but really, what do they feel when they work with you?
How do you actually influence that kind of experience? Because it's, most MSP owners find sales and marketing so very hard. How do we build it into a system so that it happens routinely, whether we kind of think about it or not?
I think the first piece is really understanding who your market is. So what do they care about? What are they actually looking for? Most people, I shouldn't say this working for a technology provider or a vendor, but most people don't care what the technology is. They care about what you produce through it. And they care about how they're treated when they have a problem. Like, I think some of your best opportunities to grow your business are some of the issues that come up and how you actually handle those. And that really leads to them actually telling more people about working with you and that experience you provided for them.
So you're absolutely right. I completely agree with you that people buy outcomes. They don't buy what it is that you actually sell. And here's where the difference is between what you're doing right now, Heather, and in terms of selling your employer's technology, which we'll talk about towards the end of the interview. You're selling to an educated audience, and that's obviously is a difference. Whereas for your MSP, they're selling to a non-educated audience, and that's not being offensive in any way about ordinary business owners and managers. They just don't know about technology, and to a certain extent, they don't care, do they? So what do you recommend because I know you work with lots of MSPs to help them get better at their sales and marketing. What are some of the practical things that you recommend?
I think the first thing is approaching your job from that mindset of being part of their business and a consultant to them. So I always say partner first, sell second. So if you're really in there and helping them identify where they could gain efficiencies, or there's something that can make their day a little bit easier, I think they recognize that. And then they see you as that thought leader and as that advisor, and not we always say used car salesman here, but not the used car salesman that's just trying to get a product in their door, move on and go to the next deal. You're actually an integral part of their operation and their culture and what they're actually building as a company.
Yeah, so that's a cultural reference I think you'd use anywhere in the world, the used car salesman.
Yes.
We all know exactly how that means. In fact, it's interesting to note there are various companies across the world now trying to get rid of the used car salesman. So here in the UK, we have something called Kazoo, where you buy the car online and they, the secondhand car online, and they deliver it to you. And I'm sure there's is it Car Wow in the US? I know there's one company doing a similar thing.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so clearly you and I don't know a great deal about cars, but we all get the analogy. So practically, how do you do that? I mean, let me put you in the position of being the MSP owner. So imagine tomorrow you had some kind of crazy entrepreneurial seizure and decided to start your own MSP. And what would you practically do to put in place some of the things you were just recommending?
The first thing I would think about is, where do I have connections and what do I truly understand? So if it was me and I was building an MSP, I probably would go after a market around advertising agencies or something like that, because I actually understand how their business operates. That doesn't mean that's the only people I'm going to sell to, but I do understand how their business runs, and I would be able to give them advice that actually makes sense to make them more efficient. Where if, let's say, use the car analogy, if I said, oh, I'm going to go focus on car dealerships, well, I have no knowledge of their actual operations and what they do. And I really couldn't help them. I could sell them a technology easily and say, yeah, this will probably help you, but I don't actually understand their business.
Yeah.
And I think when you focus on what you understand and areas that you already have connections, it's way easier to grow that business and become that go-to resource really on a national level, because when you're that targeted, everybody knows everybody. Especially, I mean, you think about technology. I mean, everybody in technology knows every other person in technology. It's no different in any industry as you move into those different spaces.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's not just leveraging what you already know. You can also put yourself in their shoes in a similar way to the way I just asked you to do it. I have a member of our MSP Marketing Edge program, and he is dominating his niche right now, his niche. So he's in the UK, well, we call it a niche, not a niche. And but he had a bit of he had a foot in the niche already. And having made the decision, the emotional commitment to wanting to dominate that niche, he started going to the trade shows. He started reading the magazines that they read, the blogs that they read. He started picking up the phone more to his existing clients and asking them, what's going on right now? What's annoying you? What's frustrating you? What's good is happening right now? What's not so good? And he essentially has become an expert at what's happening in that niche. And with regards to technology, not all of the things of whatever it is that they do, but with regards to the technology, right down to that particular niche has a whole series of different software systems that are very bespoke to that industry. And he didn't initially want to support those software systems, but quickly realized that when you talk to business owners in that sector about technology, the very first things they start talking about are those software systems. So he realized very quickly that him and his team needed to, at the very least, have a good understanding of how those software systems worked. Now, whether or not they actually go on and support them is a conversation. I'm not quite sure whether he does that or to what level he does that. But that was a fascinating insight for me of how to place yourself in the inside of the industry.
Definitely. And I even think, like, when you're building your business, what's the experience you're creating for your employees? So, I mean, a happy employee will make the difference between you being successful or not. I mean, you want people to want to come in and work, and you want people to want to enjoy working with your customer base. And sometimes that means you fire customers. Sometimes that means you look for other ones like that. But you figure out, like, what actually makes your inner workings tick as well. Because if you aren't focusing on that just as much, I don't think you'll be as successful as you could be.
Yes, completely agree. In fact, there's something which I don't know if you would find this. Actually, I suspect you wouldn't find this controversial, Heather, but some might. There is a saying that goes around, which is you always put the clients first. And I disagree with that. I think you actually have to put your staff first and your clients and customers second. And I do that, and I make no apology to my clients and customers for doing that, because actually, if I look after my staff and make sure that they're as emotionally healthy as they can be and they love their work, because we do fire clients, just to use that example. And we do, now and again, we fire a client just as in the same way everyone recommends MSP should do the same. I think if you look after your staff first, then they will actually do an even better job of looking after your clients. Something I heard years ago, and I can't remember the client that did it. I think this was before I was working with MSPs. They would, as a Christmas present to their staff, allow them to pick a client to be fired, which was a pretty cool thing. Now, this was a high volume, business. So they wouldn't lose 20% of their business with just one client. This is almost taking like an old fashioned view, isn't it? And looking at all of it and saying it's people, people, people. We've almost got to forget the technology and forget the systems and forget everything. And we've got to make sure that the people are looking after the people.
Exactly. And I think where technology comes in is the easier you make it for people to work, the happier they are, whether that's employees or that's your customers. There's a technology as a core piece of it, but that's not the goal. The goal isn't the technology. The goal is the people.
Yes, completely. I think that this has got to be the main learning point out of this interview, that just because as an MSP you sell technology and you deliver technology, it's not about the technology. It's about what the technology can do for the people. So thank you for that, Heather. Now, in a second, we'll talk about our extended interview, which we're going to go on to do on YouTube. But first of all, why don't you just tell us a little bit about JumpCloud? So what it is, what it does, and how we can get in touch with you.
Yeah, definitely. So at JumpCloud, we say we make remote work happen. And really what we do for cloud and managed service providers is allow them a way to securely and frictionlessly manage their clients' access to resources, IT resources that they need to operate their business. And we do that by really connecting identity accesses and devices together under a single platform with a multi-tenant console.
That's great. That's a great summary. And what's the website address, Heather?
It is www.jumpcloud.com.
So you jumped from you said you'd been in the channel for like 120 years or so.
Dog years, yes.
Yeah, dog years. Yes, absolutely. In dog years, yeah. In dog years, that will explain why we've all got crow's feet and wrinkles. Well, you haven't, but some of us don't look quite so good. When you move, and obviously people move around and make career decisions for a number of different reasons, and I don't want to look at that. I want to look at what it's like when you move from one vendor to another. So you're a marketing professional, and you've obviously been brought in to do something special. As you're looking at something like that, is it scary for you moving into a new venture, or is it exciting? What's the kind of the attraction for you to jump from something where you're clearly doing very well and you're comfortable into something new where you've almost got to start the marketing process again?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. I mean, it's always just scary to leave what's normal. And what you have established, but I think the excitement comes in building something new. So I'm not one that likes to be comfortable. It's not my nature. And I feel like once I get something to a spot that I feel like it can kind of run itself without me, it's time to go build the next thing and help the next thing grow and be the best it can. So, I mean, for me, that's what I look for. And then I also look at, do I think there's a true potential to make an impact at a business? Because if the answer is no, then why leave where you're comfortable? But if you really do feel like you can make a difference, then it makes it fun and it makes the scary bits not so bad.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Let me ask you a big open question. And I want to emphasize that I'm not asking your point of view about your current employer or any of your previous employers. But in general, if you think about vendors and how vendors think about MSPs, because we've just done an interview where we've talked about putting yourself essentially in the shoes of the person that you want to communicate with, sell to, and obviously you as representative of a vendor, you have to do that with an MSP. Do you think vendors in general are getting better at this? Do you think that they're trying harder? Because we see lots of high-profile people who, talk very well to MSPs and use their language and understand where they're at. But do you think that's representative of the vendor of the channel overall, or do you think there's still a lot of vendors have a lot of work to do? And don't name names, just talk generally. I'm trying not to destroy your future employment prospects here.
I think there's the good, the bad, and the ugly across the board, but I do think this is a new space. I mean, not only for the vendors, but for MSPs as a business type. So I think that vendors are getting better at understanding that when you're working with MSPs, it's really about the same way they need to be with their customers. It's about being a team member on their team. So if you look at most MSPs, they don't necessarily have true sales experience a lot of times. They may have been an engineer that started a company. They don't have marketing experience. So the vendors that do really well, and I think understand where they fit in the MSP's business, are ones that really focus on how do I make them a better business, regardless of whether they sell my technology or not? So if you're really focusing on improving and helping them grow, the hope is that they bring you along with them, but that the sales shouldn't be the focus. It should be the partnership.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. It really does. Now, we've got two final things I want to talk about. The first of them is JumpCloud. So, as you know, I'm not a tech, and I suspect you don't come at it from a tech background either. But let's talk about use cases. So give us a couple of examples of how an MSP or why an MSP would use JumpCloud.
So part of it is around the technology stack that they're using. When they go into a customer's environment, they have mixed environments. They have Windows, they have Mac, they have all these other things that they have to work with. And where JumpCloud fits is they've built a platform that essentially is vendor agnostic. It isn't a rip and replace. You can go in there and you can put it with what you're currently doing and give your clients access to the technology they want in a way that they can get to the apps and the different platforms that they need with the click of a button. And that's something that honestly is what got me really interested. Like, I thought about my days going into work. How many systems do you have to log into every day? How many times do you have to put in a different password or whatever the case may be? What JumpCloud allows them to do is really use a single identity where they log in, it automatically gives them access to everything they need. And that time you spend, which seems like seconds or even minutes, when you add that up during the day, the number of times you're jumping, the amount of time that saves you by being able to just click an icon in a single console it really is kind of mind-blowing when you actually experience it. I mean, obviously, we eat what we cook here. So I log in every day and I use it. And I just, within the first 2 weeks, I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much time I was wasting. It's sort of cool. Yeah.
I can't imagine how horrendous that must be for people who work for companies where the product sucks and they're trying to sell something that they don't even want to use themselves. It's that's just beautiful. Right. Final thing I want to ask you about, Heather, is of course cosplay. Let me just summon my child. Child, we need you. We need to talk about cosplay. So I record these interviews at home, and come here. So she can't hear you. This one can't hear you, Heather. Oh, your head is obscured by the microphone. There we go. So this is Sam. Sam is 11 and likes cosplay. What kind of cosplay do you like?
Anime cosplay.
Anime, so like Japanese weird stuff.
You have to take her to MomoCon. It's in Atlanta. It's a big one.
Okay, so apparently we need to go to MomoCon in Atlanta. That's
sounds scary.
Sounds scary. It does sound scary, doesn't it? And what do you like to dress up as, Heather?
So I do more movies, and I go for as authentic to the original character as I can be. So me and my husband go to Dragon Con every year, and one year, I don't know if you watch Wes Anderson, but we did a sequence of Wes Anderson films, and each day was in the order of the years they were produced. So we started out with Rushmore, then we did Fantastic Mr. Fox, and then we finished up with Moonrise Kingdom. So
wow. Heather, thank you so much for your time. It's been great to talk to you as always. Just to finish off, just remind us again, what's the URL to reach you at JumpCloud?
www.jumpcloud.com.
Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast.
Extended interview.